Imagine for a second that there is a piece of knowledge out there that is just so incredibly profound that bathing in its wisdom just one single time,
Just once.
yeah, just once, is said to completely wash away the dirt of the entire worldly cycle of birth and death. You basically dip into this knowledge, and the existential grime of countless lifetimes is just scrubbed clean.
Right.
But here is the striking paradox from our sources today. The language that this world-shattering wisdom is written in is described as being so beautiful and like so incredibly simple that absolutely anyone can grasp it with just a little bit of practice.
Exactly.
It doesn't require a PhD in ancient linguistics. It doesn't require you to be some scholar locked away in a tower. It just requires you. Okay, let's unpack this, because on the surface, claiming that reading a simple text once can, scrub away the grime of countless lifetimes, that sounds like a massive exaggeration.
It sounds like magic, yeah.
Right. So today on the Deep Dive, we are looking at the introductory texts to the Bhagavad Gita. Specifically, we're looking at Sri Gita Ji Ki Mahima, the Pradhan Vishaya, the Atadhyanam, and the Gita Mahatmyam. We really want to see how they justify these massive claims and, promise to dismantle our modern anxieties.
And the approach we are taking here is to examine these introductory notes, not just as abstract theology,
Right.
but as a highly practical, incredibly grounded manual for human existence. We want to discover how this ancient framework positions itself as radically inclusive, how it actively dismantles these common misconceptions we have about spirituality, and ultimately, how it provides these dual roadmaps for navigating the complexities of daily life.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is that when a text claims to wash away the dirt of the worldly cycle, which is a concept known in Sanskrit as samsara, the continuous loop of birth, suffering, and death, it is not speaking of literal magic.
Right, it's not a spell.
Exactly. It is pointing to a fundamental cognitive shift. It is arguing that human suffering is primarily a product of ignorance, a misapprehension of reality, and that correct knowledge acts as a solvent for that ignorance.
So the claim isn't that you read some magic incantation and your problems vanish into thin air. The claim is that the text offers a paradigm shift so severe that the way you perceive your problems fundamentally alters.
Yes, exactly.
And yet the source text states that no human being has the capacity to fully describe the greatness of the Gita through speech alone, because it is a Paramrahasyamaya Granth.
A supremely mysterious text.
Right. Supremely mysterious. So how does a text maintain the status of a supreme mystery while simultaneously using language so simple that anyone can grasp it? Because those two ideas, they seem completely opposed to each other.
They do. But to understand that paradox, we have to look at the mechanics of the language and the history of the knowledge it contains. The source notes explain that the Gita contains the absolute essence of all the Vedas.
And the Vedas are...
They are the vast, sprawling, incredibly dense ancient scriptures of India. We are talking about thousands upon thousands of verses, detailing complex rituals, abstract cosmic philosophies, societal laws.
massive texts.
Truly massive. Historically, to even begin to comprehend the Vedas required decades of intense full-time study, and it was usually restricted to a very specific priestly class. The language of the Vedas is archaic. It's layered with esoteric metaphors that require specialized keys to decode.
Like a cipher.
Exactly like a cipher. The Gita, by contrast, takes the philosophical bedrock of those massive texts and distills it. The Sanskrit used in the Gita is classical, it's rhythmic, and relatively straightforward in its vocabulary. A student of Sanskrit can parse the grammar of the Gita far more easily than the grammar of, say, the Rig Veda.
Right.
However, the mystery, that Paramrahasyamaya element you mentioned, lies in the density of the ideas packed into those simple words.
Okay, that makes sense. Because the source explicitly notes that every day new emotions and meanings arise, keeping it forever fresh. Which is such a wild concept for a book. It implies the text operates almost like a self-updating software. But obviously the ink has been dry for thousands of years.
The words haven't changed.
Right, the words haven't changed at all. So what is actually updating? It seems less like the text is changing and more like the text is a static diagnostic tool for the reader.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, like as you level up in life, as you experience a career failure or the birth of a child, the loss of a parent, you bring a completely different operating system to the text. And that new operating system allows you to unlock a new level of meaning that was always there, but was just completely inaccessible to your previous self.
That psychological mechanism is precisely why the text claims inexhaustibility. Think about it. A mathematics textbook is static.
Sure.
The formula for the area of a circle does not change whether you are 10 years old or 80 years old, nor does your emotional relationship to it.
Pi r squared is pi r squared.
Exactly. But a manual for human existence must interact with the ever-changing variable of the human condition. When you read the Gita at 20, your primary psychological drive is likely ambition, identity formation, establishing your place in the world.
You want to conquer the world.
Right. So you will naturally filter the simple Sanskrit verses through that lens. But when you read the exact same verses at 50, having experienced the transient nature of success or the decline of physical capabilities, the text speaks to you about letting go.
Wow.
The depth is not purely linguistic. The depth is located in the resonance between the static words and the evolving human psyche. This is why Maharishi Vedvyas is quoted in our sources from the epic Mahabharata, stating, Jita Sugita Kartavya Kimanya Shastravistarai.
Which means one should study the Gita thoroughly, and there is no need to elaborate on other scriptures.
Yes.
And it emerged directly from the lotus-like mouth of Lord Padmanabha, meaning Vishnu.
Yeah.
So it's essentially saying, hey, skip the middleman.
Skip the middleman, yes.
We don't need the endless commentaries and the sprawling libraries of other traditions if this one text provides the distilled essence.
Exactly.
But, if this text is the ultimate universally applicable distillation of human wisdom, why was there ever a need for spiritual gatekeeping in the first place? Because the sources place this enormous emphasis on the fact that this text is for everyone.
Well, the author of these introductory notes felt a vital need to explicitly detail who is allowed to read this. And that tells us a great deal about the cultural environment in which they were writing.
Right, the historical context.
Exactly. In ancient India, access to Vedic knowledge was heavily restricted. The transmission of the highest philosophical teachings was largely the domain of male Brahmins, the upper caste. Spiritual gatekeeping was an entrenched societal reality, often justified by arguments about intellectual capacity or ritual purity.
It was an exclusive club.
A very exclusive club. Therefore, for a foundational introductory text to declare that every human has the right to this scripture, that is a radical dismantling of the status quo.
I mean, that's revolutionary for the time.
It is. The source specifically notes that women, Vaishyas, which is the merchant class, Shudras, the laboring class, and even those born of what they term sinful wombs, can all attain the absolute highest state of realization.
Wow.
The only required entry fee is faith and devotion. It democratizes the ultimate wisdom of the universe, arguing that enlightenment bypasses societal hierarchies, gender norms, and class structures entirely.
That level of democratization is just so powerful. It basically states that the highest state of consciousness is a fundamental human right.
Oh, right. Not a privilege.
Exactly. Not a societal privilege. It doesn't matter what your day job is or what box society has put you in. Yet if the text is completely open to everyone and its language is accessible, we run into this massive contradiction that is highlighted in our sources.
The fear.
Yes. People actively avoid it. The text identifies a pervasive, deep-seated fear that keeps everyday people from engaging with this knowledge. It's what we might call the runaway monk myth.
Ah, yes. The notes highlight a very specific cultural misunderstanding here. Many people harbor the belief that the Gita is strictly a text for sannyasis.
And a sannyasi is...
A sannyasi is an ascetic, a renunciant. It's someone who has completely severed their ties to the material world. They've abandoned their family, their career, their social obligations, all to pursue spiritual liberation. They often live in secluded ashrams or forests.
Okay.
So the fear is that the philosophical knowledge contained in the Gita is so incredibly potent that it will inevitably compel the reader to adopt this extreme lifestyle.
Which is kind of hilarious, actually. The source material mentions parents actively avoiding teaching the text to their children because they are terrified the knowledge will make the child abandon their home.
Yes.
To a modern listener, that might sound like a purely ancient cultural quirk. It's like parents refusing to let their kids read a book about sailing because they're terrified the kid will immediately steal a boat and abandon society.
That's a fantastic analogy.
But the psychology behind it is incredibly relevant today. It's the exact same psychological block that prevents a high-powered executive from attending a mindfulness retreat or going to therapy.
Oh, absolutely.
There is this deep, unexamined fear that our worldly success, our ability to pay the mortgage, climb the corporate ladder, win negotiations, is entirely dependent on our stress, our anxiety, and our fierce attachment to the outcomes.
That edge.
Right, the edge. We think, if I look too closely at my own mind, if I actually find inner peace, I will lose my competitive edge. I will become completely apathetic. We fear that enlightenment makes us incompatible with modern ambition.
That is an incredibly sharp modern equivalent.
Yeah.
Because the fear of losing the driving force of ambition by acquiring inner peace is a fundamental misunderstanding of what the text actually teaches.
Totally backwards.
What's fascinating here is the profound irony of this fear, which you see simply by looking at the narrative context of the Gita itself. Consider the physical setting of the dialogue.
Right.
It does not take place in a quiet meditation hall. It takes place in the dead center of Kurukshetra, a chaotic, deafening battlefield, literally moments before a catastrophic war is about to commence. And consider the psychological state of Arjuna, the warrior, who's receiving this knowledge.
I mean, Arjuna is having what we would classify today as a severe clinical panic attack.
Exactly.
He drops his weapons. He is literally hyperventilating. He looks across the battlefield. He sees his own relatives and teachers on the opposing side, and he essentially says, I cannot do this. I would rather live on alms. I would rather be a beggar in the forest than fight this battle and fulfill my societal duty.
We want out.
Yeah, Arjuna's the one desperately trying to become the runaway monk. He is using these spiritual-sounding arguments, nonviolence, renunciation, to mask a profound psychological breakdown. He's just trying to avoid a horrific worldly responsibility.
Precisely. Arjuna is paralyzed by attachment, grief, and a complete misunderstanding of his actual duty. He wants to retreat. The entire 700-verse discourse of the Gita is Krishna systematically dismantling Arjuna's arguments for running away.
Piece by piece.
The wisdom is delivered with the explicit goal of convincing a man to stay in the world, stand up, and perform his harrowing, messy, worldly duty. Krishna commands him to fight.
Right.
Therefore, the source text argues, if the ultimate tangible result of the Gita was to make a man stay in the world and engage in the most intense physical action imaginable, it is entirely illogical to believe that reading the text will turn a person into an apathetic renunciate.
Exactly, it's the opposite.
The text does not ask you to abandon your worldly actions. It demands that you transform your psychological relationship to those actions.
Okay, so if Arjuna isn't allowed to drop his weapons and run away to the forest, he's left with a terrifying reality. He has to stay and fight his own family.
Yes.
How does a human mind endure that without completely fracturing? The text must offer some kind of psychological survival mechanisms, right?
It does. And this brings us to the Pradhan Visho, the main subjects or the specific paths laid out in the text to achieve this transformation. The sources outline two main paths, Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga. Let's delve into these because this seems to be the absolute philosophical core of the entire text. Let's begin with Sankhya Yoga, the path of knowledge.
Right, Sankhya Yoga. The core mechanism of this path involves an intense, relentless intellectual discrimination between what is real and what is unreal. Our sources describe it using the Sanskrit term Mrig Trishna, which translates to the thirst of a deer, a mirage. Sankhya requires the practitioner to view all material things, the entire phenomenal world, as a mirage or a dream.
A dream?
Yes, it asks you to recognize that the qualities of Maya, the illusory, constantly shifting nature of the material world, are simply operating within themselves, and that your true self, the observer, is completely separate from them.
Okay, wait. When you say view the world as a mirage, that requires some serious clarification.
Because a mirage isn't nothing. When you see water on a hot highway, the light hitting your eye is physically real. The asphalt is real. The heat is real. What is unreal is your brain's interpretation that there is an oasis waiting to quench your thirst.
That's a very good point.
So Sankhya isn't claiming that the physical world literally doesn't exist, is it? It's claiming that our projection of permanent fulfillment onto temporary objects is the illusion. We chase a promotion, a perfect marriage, social status, absolutely convinced it will quench our existential thirst, but we arrive to find out we are just drinking hot sand.
That is the precise distinction. The physical phenomena occur, but the narrative you attach to them, the expectation of permanent satisfaction, is the illusion.
Wow.
To practice Sankhya Yoga, one must be completely free from the ego of doership. This ego is termed ahankara.
Ahankara.
Yes. Ahankara is the psychological mechanism that says, I am the one performing this action. I am the one achieving this result. In Sankhya, you must observe your mind, your body, and your senses acting in the world, but retain zero sense of identification with those actions.
Zero identification.
None. You feel no sense of belonging to anything except the divine or the ultimate reality. It is a path of radical, almost clinical detachment from the concept of identity.
Okay, so Sankhya is the mind operating as a scalpel, constantly cutting away the illusion of the self. Then we have the second path, Karma Yoga, the path of action.
Right.
Our sources describe this as maintaining equanimity in success and failure, abandoning attachment, and letting go of the desire for the fruits of one's actions. All actions are performed as an offering, continually reflecting on a higher purpose while you work.
Yes.
Now, the text explicitly states that the ultimate result of Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga is identical. They both lead to ultimate liberation. But it also states that they are distinct during the practice phase due to a concept called Adhikaripeda. Can you break that down?
Of course. Adhikaripeda translates to differences in the eligibility, the temperament, or the psychological disposition of the practitioner. The paths are tailored to different types of human hardware, essentially. And the text provides a crucial caveat regarding their difficulty. While Sankhya Yoga, the path of viewing the world as a dream and shedding the ego, is technically possible, the text notes that it is incredibly, perhaps impossibly, difficult as long as Dehabhiman exists.
Dehabhiman. Deha means body, right? And Abhiman means pride or identification, body ego.
Yes, body ego. But it's important to understand that body ego is not vanity. It is not looking in the mirror and thinking you are attractive.
Right, it's deeper than that.
Much deeper. Dehabhiman is the deeply ingrained biological and neurological conviction that I am this physical organism. As long as you feel localized pain when you stub your toe, as long as your mood plummets when your blood sugar drops, you are operating under Dehabhiman.
You're tied to the biology.
Exactly. The illusion of continuous physical self is hardwired into our neurobiology for survival. Therefore, trying to genuinely practice Sankhya Yoga, trying to intellectually abstract yourself from your body and view the world as a dream while your biology is screaming for sustenance or safety, is an agonizingly steep climb.
It goes against millions of years of evolution.
Yes. Because of this extreme difficulty, the text notes that God explicitly told Arjuna to practice Karma Yoga instead.
Okay, but I need to push back on the mechanics of Karma Yoga here, because this is where the modern application usually falls apart for people.
Okay, let's hear it.
The text says you cannot walk both of these paths at the exact same time. It uses the analogy that a person traveling to the Ganges River cannot walk on two different roads simultaneously.
True.
So Arjuna is told to choose Karma Yoga. He has to fight the battle, but abandon attachment to the fruits of his action. Let's map this onto a modern scenario. Imagine a trauma surgeon operating on a child. The fruit of that action is the child surviving.
Yes.
If the surgeon abandons all desire for the fruit of the action, how do they maintain the rigorous, obsessive focus required to perform an 8-hour open-heart surgery? If you don't care about the outcome, apathy seems inevitable. How is Karma Yoga different from simply not caring?
This is the most common and honestly the most dangerous misunderstanding of Karma Yoga. Abandoning attachment to the fruit does not mean abandoning care for the action. In fact, it demands the exact opposite.
How so?
Let's look at the psychology of your surgeon. If the surgeon's mind is entirely focused on the fruit, the fear of the patient dying, the potential malpractice lawsuit, the impact on their career reputation, the profound grief of the parents, their cognitive load is consumed by the future.
They're trapped in what might happen.
Exactly. Anxiety lives in the future. The physical action of surgery, however, can only occur in the present millisecond. If the surgeon is attached to the fruit, their hands will shake. Their judgment will be clouded by panic.
Wow, okay.
Karma Yoga demands that the surgeon completely sever their psychological attachment to the future outcome, precisely so they can redirect 100% of their cognitive and physical energy into the present action of the scalpel.
Oh, that makes so much sense. So the detachment is actually a tool for supreme focus. You aren't giving up your pursuit of excellence. You are giving up the psychological baggage of expectation.
Yes.
You write the brilliant corporate proposal, or you fight the war, or you perform the surgery because it is the necessary and right action in that specific moment. You do the work with absolute intensity as an offering to a higher purpose.
And then you accept whatever result occurs with equanimity.
Yeah.
Because the result is generated by a million variables entirely outside your control. You control the action, not the outcome.
You control the action, not the outcome. That is powerful.
Precisely. Karma Yoga uses the chaotic, messy actions of daily life as the very fuel for spiritual growth. You do not need to retreat to a cave. Your office, your hospital, or your battlefield becomes the monastery.
Right.
However, engaging in either of these paths, maintaining supreme focus in the present moment, or intellectually dissecting reality, requires an astonishing level of mental discipline. The human mind naturally rebels against this. It wants to dwell on the past or panic about the future.
Always.
Therefore, the sources do not just give us the philosophy, they give us the preliminary psychological exercises required to even attempt to read the Gita. This is found in the section called Atha-dhyanam.
The preparatory meditation verses.
Right.
Yeah, the sources provide the Sanskrit verses and their translations, instructing the reader to recite and visualize them before engaging with the core text.
Right.
And we often think of meditation as just sitting quietly and trying to empty the mind, right? Like a blank slate. But these verses don't ask you to empty your mind at all. They ask you to fill it with incredibly specific, striking imagery.
They do.
The first verse asks the reader to visualize Lord Vishnu. It says he has a supremely peaceful appearance, yet he is sleeping on a bed made of the serpent Sheshnag, which is this massive multi-headed snake.
Yes.
He has a lotus growing from his navel, his skin is the color of a dark blue rain cloud, and he is omnipresent like the sky.
Now, this is not mere poetic decoration. It is a highly specific cognitive technology. The mind relies on ordinary, rigid structures and predictable narratives to maintain its sense of ego.
Okay.
By forcing the mind to hold a visualization of extreme paradoxical contrasts, you induce a state of cognitive dissonance.
The paradox is the point. You are visualizing absolute, unshakable, supreme peace, but you are locating that peace directly on top of a giant, multi-headed, highly dangerous serpent.
Right.
The cognitive dissonance short-circuits the logical, narrative-making part of the brain. When I read this, I immediately saw the ultimate metaphor for karma yoga itself. The serpent represents the material world. It is chaotic, it is venomous, it is completely unpredictable.
Yes.
And it has 1,000 heads. Every time you solve one problem at work or in your family, 3 more rear up.
Always.
Most people think they have to kill the serpent or run away from it to find peace. But Vishnu is resting on it. He has mastered his internal state so completely that the chaos beneath him just becomes his bed.
That is a very sophisticated interpretation of the iconography. The mythology absolutely supports this. The serpent Sheshnag represents the endless coils of time and the material universe. To find peace while resting upon the coils of time is the essence of remaining engaged in the world without being disturbed by it.
Man, that's beautiful.
The diamond then takes this internal mastery and scales it outward in the second verse. It asks the reader to visualize the Supreme Being as an entity praised by all the highest gods, Brahma, Varuna, Indra, Rudra.
Right, the cosmic scale.
Yes, he is sung by the ancient Samaveda. But the critical instruction is to visualize an entity whose ultimate end, whose true boundary, is completely unknown to both the gods and the demons.
You are asked to actively conceptualize the infinite. But how does visualizing an entity with no boundaries prepare the mind to read philosophy?
It acts as a psychological recalibration mechanism through the induction of awe. Modern neurobiology has shown that experiencing profound awe, whether looking at the Milky Way, standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon, or engaging in deep cosmic visualization, momentarily deactivates the default mode network in the brain.
Oh, the default mode network. That's where the ego lives, right?
Exactly. It's where our sense of self, our rumination, and our ego reside. When you try to hold the concept of an infinite being in your mind, your ego naturally shrinks. Your profound anxiety about a missed email, a social slight, or an impending deadline is suddenly contextualized against the infinite scale of the cosmos.
It just wipes it out.
It forcefully shrinks your worldly problems down to a microscopic size. You cannot effectively absorb a text designed to destroy the ego if your mind is currently consumed by the ego's daily dramas.
That makes total sense.
The dhyanam forces you to zoom out to the cosmic level, so that when you zoom back in to read the text, your mind is quiet, receptive, and properly scaled.
Which makes the transition to the final section of our sources, the Gita Mahatmyam, perfectly clear. If the Dhyanam is about using cosmic imagery to shatter the ego's rigidity, the Mahatmyam uses deeply grounded, earthy metaphors to explain the actual mechanics of how this knowledge functions once it enters a receptive mind.
It brings it back down to earth.
Exactly. These verses outline the immense benefits of internalizing the text, claiming that studying it with a pure heart permanently frees one from fear and sorrow. And to explain how, it uses a series of metaphors, starting with the 2 baths.
The 2 baths metaphor directly addresses the hook we opened with. The source contrasts physical bathing with the bath of knowledge. It notes that bathing daily in water cleans the physical dirt off the body, but that process is entirely temporary.
Right, the dirt comes back.
The dirt returns the next day. The physical body is trapped in a cycle of accumulation and cleansing. However, bathing just once in the water of the Gita's knowledge destroys the dirt of samsara. the ignorance that binds the soul to the cycle of worldly suffering.
The metaphor works because water is a universal solvent, but it elevates it by also referring to the Gita as the nectar of the Mahabharata and the Ganges water.
Yes.
The Ganges is the most sacred river in India, moving through the vast terrain of the country. And the Mahabharata is this sprawling 100,000-verse epic encompassing every conceivable human failing, political betrayal, and moral ambiguity.
A massive text.
Right, so the source suggests that if the Mahabharata represents the chaotic terrain of human existence, the Gita is the pure, concentrated river of nectar cutting straight through the center of it.
Yes, and the text insists that drinking this nectar breaks the cycle of rebirth. But the absolute crown jewel of the Mahatmya, the metaphor that provides the most brilliant structural analysis of how this ancient wisdom was actually processed, is found in verse 6.
The cow metaphor.
This is the ultimate cow metaphor. It maps the entire philosophical supply chain of enlightenment.
Okay, let's walk through the cast of characters in this metaphor because it is just brilliant. First, we have the Upanishads. As we discussed earlier, these are the sprawling, ancient, highly abstract philosophical texts of India. In this metaphor, the Upanishads are represented as the cows.
Right.
So if the Upanishads are the cows and we are the humans trying to get nourishment, if we just walk into a field and try to eat the raw grass of abstract metaphysics, we starve. We literally can't digest it.
Correct. The human digestive system cannot process grass, just as the average human mind, burdened with daily survival, cannot process the raw, unadulterated abstractions of the Upanishads.
It's too dense.
Far too dense. A processing mechanism is required. This brings us to the second character, Lord Krishna, the divine teacher of the Gita. He is represented as the cowherd boy, the milker. He knows how to approach the cows, and he possesses the skill to extract the essence.
So Krishna takes the indigestible grass of the Upanishads and processes it into milk. The milk, of course, represents the teachings of the Gita itself. It is rich, sweet, and instantly digestible. But here's the part of the metaphor that I think is the most profound. You can't just walk up to a cow and start pulling on an udder and expect a massive yield of milk. A cow produces milk for a specific biological reason. You need the third character,
Arjuna.
Arjuna is represented as the calf.
This is the absolute genius of the metaphor. The philosophical discourse of the Gita was not delivered as a leisurely academic lecture. It was forcefully pulled out of the divine by the desperate, urgent, life-or-death crisis of a suffering human being.
Arjuna's panic attack.
Arjuna's panic attack on the battlefield is the catalyst. The calf must be brought to the mother to stimulate the letdown reflex of the milk. Arjuna's profound grief is what initiates the flow of cosmic wisdom.
But, and this is the final piece of the puzzle, the calf does not consume all the milk. The milker takes the vast majority of it for the village. Because Arjuna asked the agonizing questions in his moment of absolute crisis, the milk flowed.
Milk flowed for everyone.
Yes. And now, the final character in the metaphor, the person of pure intellect, the genuine seeker, you and me, we get to be the consumer of that milk. We get to drink the deeply nourishing, processed wisdom that was entirely generated by another man's suffering.
It perfectly encapsulates the core belief of the commentators who framed these texts. Knowledge is only valuable when it is digestible, when it is understood, and when it is actively applied to alleviate suffering. The greatness of the Gita, according to this verse, is not that it invented new philosophy.
Right.
Its greatness is its supreme utility.
Yeah.
It took the highest, most abstract, inaccessible truths of the universe and turned them into a deeply pragmatic manual for the everyday person.
And that brings our exploration full circle. We began with a profound paradox. An inexhaustible, infinitely deep ocean of wisdom written in language so straightforward that anyone can approach it. We shattered the runaway monk myth, recognizing that this text is not a permission slip to abandon your responsibilities, but a battle-tested psychological framework for staying engaged in the world when the pressure is immense.
Right.
We explored the mechanics of Sankhya Yoga, the surgical severing of the ego and the illusion of the physical self, and Karma Yoga, the pragmatic path of acting with supreme laser-focused intensity while dropping the paralyzing anxiety over the results.
Exactly.
We analyzed how to tune the mind by visualizing supreme peace resting atop the chaotic, multi-headed serpent of reality. And finally, we traced the supply chain of wisdom, drinking the metaphorical milk squeezed from ancient abstractions into a sweet, digestible manual for human life.
The architecture of these introductory texts is brilliantly designed. It's meant to challenge the reader before they even begin chapter 1. It forces you to examine the framework of your own life and the nature of your own internal battles.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to challenge you, the listener. Think about the daily battles you are currently facing. Perhaps it's a terrifyingly high-stakes negotiation tomorrow. Perhaps it's a deeply fractured relationship that you just don't know how to repair. Or perhaps it's a quiet, crushing crisis of purpose where you feel entirely unmoored.
It happens to all of us.
It does. When you face the chaos of your own personal battlefield, how are you reacting? Are you acting like the people who fear the Gita secretly, hoping that if you just close your eyes, numb yourself, or run away from your duties, the conflict will disappear? Or are you attempting to practice karma yoga? Are you showing up, acting with intense purpose and integrity, while taking on the incredibly grueling psychological work of letting go of your attachment to the final outcome?
The shift from what will happen to my ego if I do this, to what is the necessary and right action for me to take in this exact millisecond, is the entire journey of the text.
I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to mull over, building on the paradox of the text's inexhaustibility. We discussed how the source claims new emotions and meanings arise from this text every single day.
Yes.
But if the ink has been dry for millennia, where are those new meanings actually originating? Is the true greatness of the Gita that it is a supernatural artifact that alters reality? Or is its profound greatness simply that it is a perfectly polished, flawless mirror? The next time you read a text, any text that feels like it is speaking directly to the very core of your secret anxieties and current struggles, ask yourself this. Is the text reading you? And is it merely revealing to you how drastically you have evolved or how much you have suffered since the last time you dared to look deeply at your own reflection?
I am the universe. There is no reality higher than me. I dwell within the heart of every living being. Rise, Arjuna, and fulfill your sacred duty. I am the source of all creation. Everything rests upon me. I dwell in the hearts of all. To establish righteousness, I appear age after age.
नमस्कार दोस्तों, कैसे हो आप लोग? आशा करता हूँ आप लोग अच्छे होगे, स्वस्थ होगे। आशा करता हूँ आपको एपिसोड अच्छा लगा होगा। एपिसोड अगर अच्छा लगा होगा तो इसको लाइक सब्सक्राइब जरूर कर दीजिएगा। मिलते हैं तब तक नेक्स्ट वीडियो में। आप सुरक्षित रहिए, अपना ध्यान दीजिए। इसी मंगल कामना के साथ गुड बाय।